Morning, everybody. It's Yankee Wally here. Well, I gotta be honest, I don't think I've ever been happier this year. Definitely not this year. Maybe not last year either. Honest, I've never been so happy as I was when I heard the interview at the BBC. What a complete clot he is. What a silly, stupid twat. But anyway, last Christmas, I ordered a bit of booze, you know how you do, thinking, well, you never know, someone might call in. Not that I invited anybody, and not that I would have opened the door if anybody knocked, because of the state of the place, but I did buy a bit of booze. So I opened this one today. That's it, I took a picture for you. The Kraken, black spiced rum. My grandfather used to love rum. Lamb's Navy rum, he used to drink Lamb's. He used to keep a bottle down the side of his seat in the front room, as they called it. And I don't know how long he had the bottle. It never seemed to move, you know, the amount in there. But he used to maybe buy a bottle every couple of months. And but he would never have tried this. He would have loved it. It's black cherry and Madagascar vanilla. And I bought it at Christmas. And what I did tonight was, when I watched that BBC interview, I made a lovely cup of coffee. Well, the best I got, because I don't get fresh milk anymore because of the fridge situation, but I use this other stuff. Made a cup of coffee, and I must have put a triple rum in there. Poured it straight into the coffee. No messing. It was delicious. It was absolutely lovely. And that's enough for now. I'll keep the rest, like my grandfather. But anyway, I was so caught up with this interview, astonished, actually. Astonished at his stupidity. Again, you know, I think Prince Andrew made more of a success of his interview with Emily Maitlis than this. This was a terrible. Well, it wasn't an interview, was it? Because I've managed to get the transcripts, and what I've done is I've gone through it, and if you can see the blue between the two blue lines, that's what the interviewer says. There, look. You know, she hardly talks. They've just given him a platform to vent his fury, and he can't help it. Keeps taking, there she is there, look, having another little chat. And her questions are very valid. Nothing wrong with her interview techniques at all. Just that he's had a free rein. And I don't know if you know, but when... I'll get back to this in a minute. When Diana gave that interview to Martin Bashir, it was William who found out eventually that Martin Bashir had hoodwinked her. He had told her that people had been paid to, let me just think now, people had been paid to do something bad. And he showed Diana bank statements, that they were forged. I know that much, and the bank statements will crush it to her. I can't remember quite the motive behind the bank statements, but Martin Bashir showed her fake bank statements to make her believe that people were being paid to spy on her. And she got rid of all her security. She really did, because she was getting paranoid, and that's when she wrote to a friend about a car accident and all that. And William successfully sued the BBC, got the money and gave it to charity. William wouldn't have kept that. Harry tried to jump on the bandwagon. But listen now, here he is today. Who does he go to give his story to? The very same company that told huge lies to Diana and could very well have caused her death. Because that's when she got rid of the security. Martin Bashir is now gone to be a priest or something to do with religion. Don't they all, eh? Somewhere. And he's gone to the BBC because of all the television stations in UK. Everyone knows the BBC, and it's got a worldwide coverage. But where's his morals? Where's his integrity? You don't go to the company, and I expect Meghan said, go to the BBC and they'll pay us, because they will pay. You know, that's how it works, isn't it? And throughout this interview, I could hear Meghan talking over and over and over. The things he said, the noise, when he made reference to all the noise, meaning bad words that people are saying, he calls it noise. I thought, that's Meghan. But I was absolutely gobsmacked, to be honest. Gobsmacked. At what I can see in this. Well, let's work through it. I don't think we need to. What I found out is he's in America, and this interview was done in America by a BBC correspondent. In other words, she's based in America for the BBC, Neda Tawfik. So then he goes on. He says, "We can bring you the extended," and then it goes straight into, well, obviously, shall I do the R's or shall I leave them out? Because he's gone a little bit common with his language. And I don't like this other thing as well that he does. So I told my father that I wanted to see him. And then he said to me that he was busy. And then the next thing I know, he's flying to Italy. And then he's come back. And then he's having treatment. Oh, go down at the end. Because otherwise people confuse it with a question, don't they? I don't know. But it just doesn't sound right to me, and especially from a royal. And I think it's like this, in this country, we've got this speech now, I don't know if you know, it's called patois, Patwa, and it's like a black person would speak, but the white people are speaking it when they've got their jeans hanging down their asses, halfway down their legs. The way this outfit that they all think is cool and uniform, and they talk in this really funny. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I don't like it when they go up at the end of everything. I hate the way Meghan Markle speaks. And I'm beginning to, well, I never did like Harry is a little bit, I'm not blaming him if he is a bit nasally, but I don't think he is. I think he's picked up on some sort of Los Angeles Valley girl speak. I don't know. Anyway, he says, I thought it was going to go our way, but it certainly has proven that there was no way to win this through the courts. And then he goes on to say, I wish someone had told me that beforehand. Really? No, really. He says, I wish someone had told me. Everyone was telling you, Harry. Even if, let's not even accept the things that he says, that he doesn't look at social media, because we know they both do. We know that they both have alternate accounts on X everywhere. I know I've spoken to Meghan Markle countless times, but to you prove it, isn't it? But everyone was saying, don't do it. And even I was saying, David Sherborne was his lawyer. I put in, David Sherborne has just ordered his second yacht. Anybody with knowledge of solicitors, rich people, famous people, even idiots, people with like half a brain and a cork, I would say you're throwing good money after bad. After the last time he got burnt, he shouldn't have come back and appealed. But he did, because David Sherborne, while he's filling out his yacht order form, what shall I have, baby pink or marine blue, he's saying, yes, Harry, you let's go for it. You show him, boy, you show him. Harry's too stupid. He hasn't got any idea of the value of money. Meghan does. Like I said the other day, Meghan is the evil one and he's the stupid one. But now and again they do change roles. Meghan has put him up to this, and isn't it astonishing, though, when you think about it, that the royal family are basically, I know that they've now taken control of it, but for a long time, and even now, if we're not careful, Meghan is controlling the whole royal family. She's got them on the back foot. She's got them nervous. But yeah, without a doubt nervous, because nobody knows what she's going to say next. And she loves it. It's the most power she's ever had in her life. In fact, she could be even said to be not the most powerful person in the world, but the one that the royal family are most nervous of. It's got to be said, because when she goes on her silly little interviews with Jamie Kern, Lima Kern, whatever her bloody name was, when they have this, watch this.
From Archie and Lily via Papa. We love your cooking. We love your pancakes. And we love, love, love your hugs. You're the best mummy and we love you. So sweet. I also love that it's mummy, which is very British instead of mommy.
That's only 19 seconds of what was an hour of it was terrible. It was all like that. You're fantastic. No, you fantastic. Oh, I'm nowhere near as good as you. I mean, look at what you did. Oh, no, remember when you brought me ice cream? Oh, it was awful. I don't know how anybody can listen to that and get anything from it. We all love a compliment, don't we? Especially when we don't feel certain about something. It's great when somebody says, you were great when you thought you were bad. But Meghan doesn't think she's bad, and neither does Jamie. Now, Jamie, she sold her business for 1.2 billion to L'Oreal. I was saying about it, wasn't I, in the last video? What was it, 50 years ago, the Avon brought out 3 creams for your face, moisturiser, to go under your foundation. One was green, one was mauve, and one was apricot. Now, the apricot was for cool skin, cold skin, pink skin, I think. The mauve was for if you had like bruisey colour, dark shadows under your eyes, I think. The green one is the one I ordered, and it was for high colour, red cheeks, red. Of course, I was younger then, and I used to have quite rosy cheeks, so and it worked a wonder. Put this green cream on and it turned into white, and then you put your foundation on. So even though she hit on a winner because she produced a foundation which was thicker than normal for this rosacea, whatever, the high colour, people must have forgotten about it. I wish I'd known that. I could have brought that green cream, because Avon don't do it anymore. It was a good cream as well. Anyway, she invented that. Good for her. I mean, really good for her. Apparently, I'm told now that her husband was involved in it. Maybe he put the money up, I don't know. But it doesn't really matter, does it? She worked hard. She was on QVC, flogging her makeup 7 days a week, however often she could. She worked hard and she reaped the benefits. Now, if she's talking to Meghan as businesswoman to businesswoman, that's never going to last the test of time, because they're poles apart. Meghan is not a businesswoman. I explained about everything in business. There's a lot of things to consider. Each business is completely different from the other. But in Jamie's case, if she's inventing that, she's obviously making her own makeup or subbing it out to somebody else to make it. But it's her recipe, and she's got to decide how much stock she's going to hold, because stock is money, and it's expensive to hold stock in a warehouse, and then you've got a shelf life on the stock as well. So you've got to anticipate your future sales, and if they're not up to par, there's always the chance that the makeup could go out of date. So you've got to have a sale before it does go out of date, and there's lots to consider. Meghan isn't thinking like that. She's pretending to make this jam in her kitchen, and then next thing you know, you see it rolling down an artificial factory belt or a belt of a machinery. She's not making that jam. There's a place up the road, I did say about it, Pacific Palisades. Anyway, it's a jam making firm. I did have it. Right, I got to go through this now. Where am I? I'm never going to finish unless I do. Yeah. Right, okay, let's do it. I've got to get through this. I've highlighted the bits I want to talk about, the stupidest ones. It is on YouTube, by the way. I will try and put the link into the show notes below. It's impossible. So now it's impossible for me, says Harry, to take my family back to UK safely. Win-win. That's exactly what we wanted. I'm not being funny. I love the kids and all that. Of course the kids are innocent. Of course they are. I mean, he could send the children home. That would be lovely for us. And we'd see Catherine, beg your pardon, bringing up 5 children. But of course, that wouldn't happen unless, because Meghan wouldn't let it happen, unless something happened to Meghan or she decided she didn't want the children. Oh, but in which case then, if Meghan disappeared, Harry would probably come home with his tail between his legs. I don't want to see Harry anymore because he's still speaking so highly of his wife. And then the interviewer says, "You're obviously very deeply affected by this. What memories and experiences had you hoped your children, Archie and Lily, would have had that you now think they won't be able to?" And he says, "Well, for a start, the only time I've come back to the UK is sadly for funerals or court cases, with the odd charitable function where I can in between that. I put myself at risk for that, but I will continue." Right, let's stop there. Funerals are unfortunate, but he would be coming on behalf of the royal family, which is what they've explained all along. Therefore, he would have his full security, right? Court cases? Well, no. Why should they? Why should they? He's going up against the royal family, isn't he, and their decisions. So no, he won't get security for that. Charitable functions? Well, I think he's got one left in the UK. Centre Bali is in Africa. I know they've got their offices in UK, or their accounts are filed in Government House in UK. But I think the only charity that he's got is Wellchild. And that's once a year, and that's it. I don't think he's got, maybe Scotty's Little Soldiers, maybe he's got a bit of involvement there, but he hasn't got anything else. I don't think he's got any charities in the UK that he's totally in control of either. They think that Archwell is enough. Give us the money to Archwell. We'll filter it through Delaware so that we only have to pay 5% tax on all the income, and we'll give it out as we see fit. Like Meghan donated a quarter of a million to Joe Biden's daughter for something. I can't even remember what it was now, but he did. Sorry, she did. If you want to give money to a charity, I strongly advise you to give it to the charity and try and get it as close to the recipients as you can. For instance, if I was going to give money to Africa, I wouldn't go through Oxfam. You want to see the wages bill for the Oxfam staff. The CEO and the directors, they earn a fortune. They got company cars and all sorts of things. And then by the time they've taken all that out of their donations, they haven't got a lot left, have they? Not as much as they could have had if people hadn't been so bloody greedy. So I think that there's people in Britain who have got trucks, and they've loaded these trucks up with food and all sorts of things that people need, maybe second-hand clothes, underwear and bras and shoes and things like that, and driven that lorry over to Ukraine. Now that's the way you know that stuff is 100% going to the people. Okay, may not be money, but I think is far more useful than money in the situation that they're in. Get as close to the recipient as you can. Don't trust charities. Meghan's taught me that. I don't think Archwell is having any money donated to them now. But don't forget, those of you that have questioned it, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney Plus or whatever, he gave Harry and Meghan a $3 million cheque on the night that they went to the premiere of The Lion King. He cancelled, or he didn't turn up for the Marines down in Deal in Kent. They were having a commemorative something for 11 soldiers that had died. Bugger that, thought Harry and Meghan. Let's go and collect the 3 million. And I've got a video clip of Bob Iger being interviewed and saying, yes, I've given them 3 million for their charity. And I've got it. In fact, I've showed it quite a few times. Anyway, he says the only time he can come back to UK is for funerals and court cases, and I'm willing to put myself at risk for that. I will always support the charities and the people that mean so much to me. But I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point, and the things that they are going to miss is, well, everything, you know. I love my country. I have always done, despite what some people in that country have done. So, you know, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK. Of course I do. And I think that's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, you know, my children, my homeland. Then the interviewer says, and as you said, you've gone back several times during this year's long battle. What about security arrangements that were in place? Did it make you feel you would be unsafe for you and your family? Then Harry says, oh, there's only so much that I can say about that because of the redaction process and the national security matters. Talk about picking and choosing what he can and can't say. If he gets stuck for words, he'll blame it on national security, which he despises because they won't give him security. So why has he got to be loyal to them? He's now going to go to the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, and Chutia Keir Starmer, the worst Prime Minister we've had in 200 years. And he's going to ask them to relook RAVEC, which is I don't know how they work it in this country, but national security. Because in 2020, Harry says, I was scored the highest as far as risk was concerned. Then overnight, I was reduced to the lowest without actually going through the Risk Management Board, which is the RMB. And apparently they give all the royal family an assessment, a bit like a health assessment, once a year. I don't think that they would have to do that for Charles, Camilla, Kate, Catherine and William, because nothing really changes, does it? But in Harry's case, I dare say he would have to. Hang on a second. So then on he goes about that, about complaining about the Risk Management Board haven't assessed him. But like I said, he won't want that. They won't assess him because he'll insist on bringing Meghan, and Meghan will bring her tape recorder, and Netflix will be on standby. They can't do it. They can't take any risks at all with Prince Harry because Meghan is... She's the fly in the ointment. She really is. She's always looking for ways to make money. And now, because she screwed up, and let's be honest, she really did. I'm not saying that it's possible to mend somebody like her. She just saw the money in everything. She just wanted to make money. There's something about people like that. I know I had an auntie like it. My mother used to say, you know, but people that no matter how much they got or how hard their husband works to give them the home and everything, they want more and more and more. And Meghan will never be happy. I don't know how it happened to her. Her brain there's something wrong with her. It's you know, she'll find a different way of making the same mistake all the time. Anyway, he's complaining then that he hasn't had this risk assessment done over the last 5 years. Everyone else in this group of people get it done at the minimum once a year. So again, I would not have taken this as far as I have if I didn't have compelling evidence of facts that really reveal why the decision was made. And I'm sitting here today talking to you where I know we've lost the appeal, but and the other side have won in keeping me unsafe. So again, there's a lot of question marks that a lot of people will have. I have all of the truth. I have all of the knowledge. Now, throughout the legal process, I've uncovered my worst fears, and to know today, based on this judgment, that there was no legal framework that constrains the decision of this body rack of which the royal households sit on, and I didn't know this until this legal process in 2021. What he's trying to say here is that Ravec, which is let's call it an office that sorts out all the security for the famous people that come and go, the consulars in the embassies and things like that, people that visit, they organise the security, and they apparently have got a board of directors, of which Harry's found out his father is on the board of directors, and so is members of the royal household. Well, I think that's great. I really do. And so they should. Because if you've got somebody, a company, for want of a better word, I don't know what they are, that's making decisions of international importance and usually involves somebody like famous or a member of the royal family, I think that it's only right that King Charles should know who's coming in and who's having security. Maybe it's one of his own visitors. There's nothing wrong with that. But Harry doesn't like that because he thinks, oh, now my father and the royal household are on the board. He's decided, it's him that's decided not to give me security. Every time he says something like this, he doesn't realise he's widening the gap between him and his father, widening it. He may think he's going against the government, but what he doesn't understand, well, I don't understand why, because I seem to grasp it, and so do you, that the government and the king work in tandem. They work hand in hand. It's a quid pro quo, as they say in legal terms. We both will work for the status quo, for the balance of the good of the country. So if it's the King's Court, the Royal Courts of Justice belong to the King. All right, he doesn't control them, but he sure as hell has a lot to say. And anyone can see that his own son is making a mockery of Britain. He's making us look so weak and stupid. He's coming over here, even when I see him get off their private planes or whatever they get off and go into a big SUV Range Rover. It really does make my blood boil, When I see Meghan walking down the steps of Westminster Abbey in that white Christian Dior suit, fiddling with her left collar because too much fiddling, because she had a recording device under the collar, and then they wanted to sit in particular seats, and Eduardo and Beatrice said, no, you can't, because those are marked for you. When they finally got into those seats, when Meghan was in that white outfit at Westminster, did you see who was directly behind them? Oh, it was Johnny. Here's Johnny. Forgot his surname now, but God, what a good-looking man he is. Always wears a kilt. Oh, he's so handsome. But apparently he got embarrassed by all the attention he was getting from all the people like us, probably. Mind, I did never send him any stalking letters. I didn't. No anonymous letters. I didn't send him nothing. And I never said I fancied him in public. But he was gorgeous, no doubt about it. And he was Prince Charles's equerry. And when Harry and Meghan sat down, they were whispering to each other. He was right behind them. He was behind Harry's left shoulder and Meghan's right shoulder. His face was perfectly placed in between their two heads as the camera took the picture. It was unbelievable. Funny. Well, he was listening to everything. And he saw Meghan fiddling with her collar. You see, even though we know a lot of things and we think the royal family don't, I think the royal family know quite a lot. And I think Meghan is one of the most dangerous, evil people in the whole world. I mean, if she hadn't married Harry, one marriage, just 2 words to wreck the entire feelings of the UK toward the royal family. I do. That was it. I do. And see now tonight on this interview with the BBC, I know he can't say it in public, but he's still sticking up for her on an interview. My wife. Excuse me. Every time he says my wife, I don't mind the children, although, still got my doubts about them. Anyway, Harry has uncovered his worst fears, knowing that his own father, who happens to be the king, is on the board of directors for Ravec, which is the place that organises security for the famous and the royals. And he hasn't had his risk assessment for 5 years. I often thought, when is Prince Charles going to do something? We've all said that, for God's sake, Charles. And then, of course, he had cancer, so we've shut up, which is a good thing. But today was just a wonderful day, just to see Harry, even though he's still as arrogant and entitled as ever. It was really wonderful to hear him say those words. We lost. Anyway, yeah, and then he's telling them, did you know that the royal household sat on Ravik? My jaw hit the floor. Do you know, if somebody had told, I'm not surprised. My jaw wouldn't hit the floor. The king's private secretary sits on Ravik, says the interviewer. Do you wish your father had intervened, despite how that may have looked? Says Harry, I've never asked him to intervene. I've asked him to step out of the way and let the experts do their job. Well, is he? I gotta be honest. I think he's thick. I think he really is stupid. He has got those mad eyes. Somebody said in the comments today, if you looked at his eyes, I had a friend who had mad eyes like that. Not being funny. He was my best friend's husband. His name was Steve. He used to drink too much. And I didn't like that. I didn't like him because he used to hit Kim when he was, drunk. But the things he used to do, he used to hand paint his car. He had loads of cars. They never lasted long, but he used to hand paint them. And then if he was drunk and he got up in the middle of the night to go to the loo, he pissed in the wardrobe. And she got to clean that up the next day. And another time, he actually took the lid off the vacuum cleaner and peed in there. I mean, I did laugh, but, there's a madness in those eyes. Stephen had the same eyes. Anyway, he doesn't think that the Ravik should be associated with his father. Does he think that his father has no clout at all within the government? I mean, I'm sure that President Trump and King Charles have already had the discussion about Harry. I know they have. And President Trump, being polite as he is, he would have said, well, what do you want me to do, Chaz, mate? And Chaz would say, oh, well, at the moment, let's not rock the boat. I've got a lot of hospital appointments next week. Can you just keep him over there until I can have a chat with William? Something like that. But Harry wants reconciliation with his father. He hasn't apologised. He hasn't said sorry. And here we are. The royal household don't have any role, he thought, other than helping influence the decisions based on members of the royal family. And 5 years later, every single visit that I do back to the UK has to go through the royal household. My representative on the Ravik committee still to this day is the royal household. That is not a decision that I choose. I am forced to go through the royal household and accept that they are putting my best interests forward during these conversations and the deliberations. So no, I haven't asked my father to intervene. He is thick. He is thick. You know what they always said about the men in grey suits. The staff are not to be treated like Meghan, like Meghan did, bullied, and I'm not here to mollycoddle you, or whatever she said. They are respected hierarchy. They're already lords and ladies, to be ladies in waiting. They're the utmost in discretion and honour and loyalty. So Charles can't handle it all himself, and neither can William. You know, there's a lot of people that have got to be organised and things. So Charles has got to have staff that he can trust and people that will act in his best interests. I'm sure Charles is not thinking, oh, goody, oh, roll on next Thursday, I've got a meeting at Ravik. I don't think he particularly cares unless they contact him because they want to know anything about Harry or about Idi Amin if he was coming over, you know, something like that. I don't think Charles... I mean when you put somebody in a role or a job, when you allocate a job to somebody, that's the time when you keep an eye for a while, but you back off. That's what you got them for. They do the job for you. It's easy, isn't it? I thought it was anyway. You know. Anyway, that's his opinion on his father, that his father shouldn't take any notice of his royal household because I'm his son. I think Prince Harry feels very, very left out now. He does, because he's made it far, far worse. I think that he thought that he was totally unwanted. I think he thought that William is the new heir. My father's the king. I don't think he realised how precious his grandmother was to his cause and him. Don't think he even appreciated her for what she did for him. You know, how she would have fought his corner for him, because the Queen was really forgiving and gracious, wasn't she? You know, she would have seen a little bit further than Charles or William and how cross they were that what Harry had done, the book and everything. But the Queen was very forgiving. But it got her in the end, same as it got Prince Philip. You know, the Queen Mother, she lived till she was 103. That's the Queen's mother. I know the Queen's father died young, but there was no reason why the Queen shouldn't have lived at least another 5 years. But I think she was absolutely fed up of it all. And you can be so fed up that she would, I mean, if I was in charge of, if I was Queen and I had that to deal with, Harry and Meghan, oh my God. You don't want to be cruel, because if you've been a kind person all your life, you don't want to suddenly start throwing your weight around, and especially when she was ill herself with blood cancer. Poor woman. Anyway, and then he goes on to talk about what he thinks Ravik, which is the Risk Assessment Centre, should have done with him and Meghan. They should have considered all the facts and circumstances, non-bias, avoid interference, royal household out of the way. And the Ravik chairman at the time, who I believe I can talk about now because he's no longer there, Sir Richard Mottram, the first thing he did, or the first people that he went to see, was the royal household. Oh, so Harry's jaw hit the floor. Why am I not surprised? Richard Mottram and the Ravik are not going to organise Harry's security. Well, they might have done had it been an ordinary son of the family. Would have been the same as usual. I mean, I'm sure that the Duke and Duchess of Kent and Princess Michael of Kent, I'm sure that when they come to the family gatherings, weddings and funerals, I'm sure their security is pretty much smooth sailing. Same as last year, same as the year before. Why change it? It suits everybody. But in Harry's case, because he's such a divisive character, and Meghan has caused so much trouble. So much trouble. And if you're in any doubt, just pick up Spare and have another look at that. It's a vile book. And, you know, I still haven't read it all the way through, but anyway. So whether it's the media or whether it's anybody else that claims that the royal household and my father don't have any decision-making capabilities on Rav, well then, what's their role? They're not experts. And Sir Richard Mottram emailed back in January, and an R&B would be necessary before taking my security away. After his visit to the palace, the R&B, that's the check, that was planned was abandoned in favour of alternative government measures. What the court decided today was that they were justified in doing that for 4 reasons, not to have that review. Those judges today decided, this was the crux of the matter, they needed to check Harry's situation before they took his security away. And then after he went to the palace, it was abandoned in favour of government to do it. Let the government do it. Charles is probably saying, oh, don't include me. No, not me. It isn't just Harry now, you see, because everybody can see that Harry is being led by the nose by a madwoman. She is mad. And of course, she's bitterly disappointed that they didn't fall for her charm back in 2017 and that she wasn't allowed to bully the staff and to say you've got a baby brain to Kate because she just had a baby and she was, I don't know, postnatal depression and things like that. She was cruel and she hadn't had any children by then. Or had she? Or hadn't she? Has she ever? Oh, God. So Meghan started off on the wrong foot, and I find that quite despicable. I'm surprised that they forgave her and carried on for the 2 years that they did. Oh, vile woman. So she's you're no longer a working royal. That's what the government said. He took them to court. He lost. He appealed, and he lost because there were 4 reasons not to have the review that Harry wanted. Of course, if he'd gone and had a review, here we go. What did Meghan do when she went to the theatre in New York? She had an entourage of 4 vehicles. And why did she do that? Well, we all know why. They call it psyops now. That's the latest thing, isn't it? For the psyops. There we go, I've said it. Psyops. The way it looks to everybody else. You know, here I am, and I'm so important, and I'm so at risk of being stalked or damaged by a hitman that I've got to have a police car in front, a decoy car behind that, me, and then another police car at the back. That's 4. Oh, and a couple of... can I have a couple of motorcycles out on the 4 corners? Thank you. Send the bill to Archwell. That's what happened. So she had that in New York, and then, of course, they did try it on with when she was wearing the gold dress. God knows what did they go to New York for in that gold dress. Meghan wore the dress, not Harry. I don't know what it was, but I think Dory was with him. And they had a 2.5-hour terrifying car chase through Manhattan. I've never been to New York, but I do know that I've never seen traffic move fast in New York, not unless it was on that ships program. No, that was California, whatever when it was for New York. You know, they'd have occasionally a car chase, but these days there's so much backup of traffic, nobody could get to a speed above 30, 40, could they? So nobody believed them. Nobody, and I still don't believe them. But I think that's when they were laying the groundwork for the security. And it's not just the UK security that's bugging Harry and Meghan. I've told you this before, but I'll say it again because even I couldn't remember it now. IPP status. That's what he had before he married Hagen. International Protected Person. Well, Meghan would be tagged onto that because she's his wife, and so would the children. Now that IPP status gets you security in every country in the world that you visit as a royal person. So when you go to the Caribbean or Colombia or Nigeria, because they did, now I'm able to say it now because of that complimentary slip that Meghan put in with Jamie Kernley's ice cream. HRH, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, have been using their HRH titles all along privately. That's why I think that Meghan is not talking to Jamie Kernsley anymore. That friendship where they were, oh, you're the best. No, you're the best. Oh, no, you are the best. Oh, remember when you sent me ice cream? Well, Jamie made the big mistake of putting it on her Instagram, complete with the compliment slip that had the HRH on it. Well, Meghan was sneaking around, flashing those. You know, don't tell anybody, but call me princess. Can you imagine? Call me princess, but don't tell anyone. Anyway, Jamie put it on her Instagram. Now the whole world knows. So she wanted IPP status. Well, first off, when she went to Colombia and Nigeria and wherever else they went, they've been they've been hoodwinking the government in these other countries into believing, even Harry when he went to Ukraine, that they are still HRH, part of the royal family, although the Queen wanted to make it quite clear that they are no longer working royals. You know, the word working royals only came in after Harry married Meghan. There was no such thing before 2018. You check. There wasn't. They didn't even call Princess Margaret a non-working royal. They didn't have to lay it out in black and white to make it completely clear to everybody that this one's royal, this one's not, because they don't work for the... They didn't have to do that because they were all British back then, and they understood their place in the pecking order. But in Meghan's case, she never understood her place in the pecking order. She just didn't get it. She thought, you should be as important as William. You are as important as William. And she puffed him up until he thought he was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And he was stupid enough. I think he must have been vulnerable to a point because of, yes, his mother died. Yes, okay. And I am sorry about that, but I'm not going to keep on about it because other people have lost their mothers at younger ages than that. You know, I don't need to go on about that because he's actually ruining Diana's legacy if he carries on. But it's not just that. He's been full of bitterness about something. I can remember when, way back before he married Meghan, I can remember somebody putting a little meme up saying, with Prince Harry looking one of those evil stares when he was 11, when at the funeral. And they wrote above it, I'm going to destroy this effing family. And you know, you look at his face, there was a lot of hate in him. And I don't know if it's gone. I don't think it has. And I think Meghan has fed the beast. So he's not a member of the working family. But another thing about this IPP, this is what he was fighting for, as well as UK security, more than UK security, international protected persons, with an S because of Meghan. He could go to Africa. They could insist on having a whole charade of, I'll have 25 camels, 15 elephants, 3 Land Rovers each side of me, 4 motorbike riders, and a gold-plated car. She could demand anything. Well, within reason. I'm sure that, you know, but you can imagine Meghan. She would still be able to pull the rank of a royal person abroad if she had the IPP status, because that would speak volumes. Also, with IPP status, you don't have to go through customs. Oh no, they wouldn't embarrass you by wanting to go through your smalls in your suitcase. You just fly straight through, which, when you consider about it, if you're not a very good person, and I'm sure there's some people with IPP status that are not good people, but I think that you could bring in anything, you know, anything. You're trusted to not because you're an internationally important person, but I don't think Meghan, you know, I don't trust Meghan. I just don't trust her. And going to Colombia, I think they might have had IPP status going to Colombia. Oh, what's they got in Colombia? Ooh, Bolivian marching powder. Things like that. You know, you never know. All you'd want is for Meghan to embarrass you like that. But how would they ever search her if she was an IPP? So he is gutted because it's affected his security all around the world. And then she says to him, is that because you are no longer a working royal, the change in your status? Do you accept that from the court? Well, my status hasn't changed. It can't change. I am who I am. That was like Popeye, wasn't it? I am what I am. I am what I am part of, and I can never escape that. My circumstances will always be the same, but with a specific answer to the question, there are comparisons, and again, I have to be careful what I say. In other words, the question was too complicated or too revealing for Harry to answer. But I think it would be quite shocking for the British public and the public at large to understand or know that in fact many people do know this, that people who leave public office receive lifetime protection regardless of whether there are threats or risks to them. So for me, with a whole risk of risks and threats that were known in 2020 and that have only increased over time, including the Al-Qaeda threat that was published and talked about recently, completely disregarded and thrown away, ignored, because, for me, security was made conditional on having that official role that everybody knows that myself and my wife, wish to carry on, but was stopped from being able to do back in 2020. Well, he's getting a bit of a muddle there with his words, but from that I can see that Al-Qaeda, I don't know much about Al-Qaeda. I know they were a gang of people, nasties. And what was he, the Taliban? Are they similar? They got to be similar, because I don't like either of them. So he shoots 25 Taliban and wonders why, and makes reference then to Al-Qaeda. The guy is trouble with a capital T. I don't know what it means, and I'm not going to try and pretend I do, but I know one thing. You won't catch me talking about Al-Q or the T or HAMAS. I just don't want to know. They're not in my thoughts, because if I did get involved in all sorts of things about that, I would get too upset for words. I only got to see someone hitting a donkey or a horse too hard and it ruins my day. It just does. So no, I don't, because they are cruel. But he's talking about them. Anyway, then the interviewer says, "What do you say to those who ask, why should the taxpayer pay for your police security if you have your own private security? Are the gaps there? What's your response to those who say you're getting police protection on a case-by-case basis?" So, she's asking what he'd say to those who says, pay for your own bloody security. He answers with, I thought, why don't you ask that question again, but in 3 parts if you could, because you've just put 3 very, very important questions together, sure, and I can't possibly answer all 3 of them at the same time. So she says, okay, what do you say to those who ask why the UK taxpayer should pay for police security you have? You have your own private security. He says, well, first off, private security can only do so much. Again, I can't go into the details of that. But I think most people will be able to work that one out. One of the major things is they don't have jurisdiction in a foreign country or in any foreign country. They don't have any jurisdiction. Police protection is effective protection, which is what my grandmother made very clear we needed with regard to the taxpayer part. Oh, God, I tell you what. If he gets stuck for words, blame it on redacted, national security, and then throw in your grandmother. That'll shut him up, won't it, Harry? Dear God. Gee, I can't believe what a fraud this guy is and how obvious it is to me. I mean, maybe you don't quite get it, but trust me when I say, I mean this, he's using all the tricks in the book to twist it around to look like a victim when in actual fact he is a bloody bully. And so is she. I bet she's disappointed. She might dump him a bit quicker now. Maybe their marriage their marriage permanency was based on this, because the IPP status she could not get with anyone else. No, she wouldn't get IPP status globally with anyone else. No, only the British royal family. And Charles and William and Catherine are really the only 3 I mean, I'm sure Princess Anne could have it any time she likes, but she doesn't go around causing trouble or shooting down people, does she, lover? I'm sure that when she goes somewhere, she has whatever she wants because she's a well-respected member of the royal family, so close to the crown, and yet she's not at all involved in it. But I love that woman, God, I do, and her kids. I love the family. I just love the royal family, and I'm thinking what a shock it must have been to the royal family to have this piece of filth. And I will say that she's nothing more than a slapper come into the royal family, make demands, bully the staff. And that shows another thing. When you bully staff, you show how little experience you have of dealing with people. Because let's be honest, all people are equal. I mean, I used to be a cleaner and I'm not ashamed of that. And I used to clean toilets and all sorts of stuff, and I'm not ashamed of that, not at all. But if the boss had come, I tell you what happened to me once with one. It was Crystal Cleaning Company in Cwmbran. I was cleaning for them. And I wasn't a bad-looking girl now. I'm going back now to when Caris was only about 3 or 4. So I dropped Caris over my mum's. I'd go and pick up a girl called Rose, and we'd go down to this computer company, and we'd whip through it cleaning. And the boss was this man, and he was ever so nice to me. And he had a wife who was really, blonde bombshell supposed to be. And he came up to me one day and he said, Sadie, he said, we need a cleaner down in Newport. I said, yeah, all right. Because I had a car, see, always an old banger, you should have seen it, but anyway. He said, and my wife has particularly asked for me, for you, me. And I knew straight away. I just knew. It was, I can't explain, because she used to come out with him sometimes, and I suppose he was kind to me, he was nice to me. But nothing between us, nothing like that. And she wanted me to clean her house, and she asked her husband to get me. She probably told him that I was the best cleaner. I don't think so, I wasn't. But she wanted to put me in my place and to make sure I knew that she was the boss's wife. I just sensed it, and I've always been pretty accurate on that. And I said to him, oh, no thanks, I don't want to go. He said, all right, no worries, And funny how I remembered that, but yeah, sometimes people just want to lord it over you. And yeah, I wonder why I thought about that. I remember it really rattled me, that it really rattled me that she, yeah, I don't think I stayed there much longer anyway, but I always found a cleaning job. Anyone can find a cleaning job. What you don't want is a boss like Meghan Markle. You just don't want it. As much as the royal family, and then he goes on to say that he's willing to forgive his father and his brother. He's willing to forgive. He's willing to forgive the public, but I don't think he can forgive the British media because they did a very good job in campaigning to have our security removed by quoting figures such as 20 million. And through this disclosure process, I've seen constituents in the UK write to their MPs saying, I don't want to, as a taxpayer, pay for Harry and Meghan's security at this cost. Well, actually, I don't think they would have said at this cost. I think they would have said, full stop after security. Cost wouldn't be important. I don't think so, not to the British, because, it's not the money, is it? It's the principle. And it's the way Meghan, well, she was like the boss at Crystal Cleaning's wife. It's awful sometimes. Those figures, he said, are obviously grossly exaggerated by about 18 or 19 times, says Harry. Well, he would, wouldn't he? So he's saying that the cost would have been 1 million. No, they wouldn't. Meghan has been known to spend that much on security for her entourage in New York. Those 4 cars and the motorbike men and the private aeroplane. How far would 1 million go in Meghan's eyes of security? Not very far, I can tell you. Not very far. And further to know how other people are being protected, people that have made a choice for public office. Well, why wouldn't you be comfortable, happy with someone in my position, meaning him, Harry, who's given 30 to 35 years service to his country? Well, if that's what you call it, Harry, you can take your service and shove it where the sun don't shine. No way. He didn't give it. When he was out in Afghanistan, I think it was his second tour, they used to call him Bunker Harry, but everybody knows this. In fact, that's how I met Trevor Coult, was by Trevor exposing how lazy Harry was over there in Afghanistan. They couldn't put him on the front line. They couldn't have him risking his life because he's second in line to the throne, or third, or whatever. But he would go on reconnaissance and he'd be followed by about 4 Sherpas carrying his packed lunch and plainclothes detectives with guns to protect him as he's going to search for the enemy. It just doesn't, it's like a Benny Hill sketch, isn't it? It wouldn't work like that. So he was in his bunker playing with his Game Boy, and I think he got confused over his Game Boy kill count and the time he went up once or twice in a helicopter. He doesn't have a helicopter pilot's license. I don't know what he has got. I think he might have a gunner's license. I'm not quite sure what he's got. But he can't fly a helicopter on his own. That's the truth. And he goes on then about his 2 tours of Afghanistan and the threats and the risks to my life. No, there's no way. And then, of course, he had a row with Chelsea Davy on the phone. And he made a song and dance and showed off and wanted to go and see her because they'd parted on bad terms. She must have been so cheesed off with him. And they had to fly him home and his cover was blown. That's why his second tour ended. Now, I'm not quite sure of the specifics in that, but I think it's mostly true. In this position, I was born into those risks, says Harry, and they've only increased over time, along with my marriage to Meghan. Well, hang on, I might give you that one, Harry. He's blind, he can't see it. He cannot see. I wonder if anybody else has ever known anybody else like that. Have you ever known anybody where everybody that knows this married couple says, oh, he's okay, but she's a bloody nightmare. And he's completely blind to it. Does it happen a lot in life? Because I'd be sure, if I was, let's say I was Harry, I would be able to read the room a bit better than him, and I'm sure you would too. You'd know if somebody didn't like you, wouldn't you? Or you'd know. Maybe Meghan thinks that they are just bullying her and that all she is a kind person. They're both deluded then. And the frenzy, says Harry, across the media and the social media. So, and I guess on top of that as well, probably what people don't know, but what is mentioned in the judgment today, Ravik, protect private citizens, I was made a private citizen by the royal household. Not by Ravik. I can't be a private citizen. I will never be seen as a private citizen. I will never be treated as a private citizen, not by the media, not by most people, and certainly not by anybody that wants to harm me or my wife or our kids. So, I think once people realise or understand that there are private citizens who have never played any role in public office and never will play any public role, that because they are high risk, they are protected at the taxpayer's expense, and rightly so, because it would not only affect that person, but they could end up in hospital, or worse, on UK soil. But it comes down to impact, and it comes down to the reputational impact of the UK. If that person or those persons are injured on UK soil. But for me, apparently, that doesn't matter. You know what? I wouldn't be able to keep a straight face. I'm only an ordinary person. I don't even know much about the royal family, only what I know. Or the government. I'm not even a political person. I know more about American government than British. But I know instinctively how the royal family work with the government. It's a mutual, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, and respect, a mutual respect. So then the interviewer says, And just to be absolutely clear, what is the difference between the top level security, as you say, you should have, and the security you were given in this case? And he says, all I can say is that the last R&B, which is the RNB assessment I was given, like the medical, to see what you need in the terms of security, I was given the highest score. In other words, he needed the most security of anybody else. I was the highest person within the family that scored, and the only other high person was my grandmother. And overnight, I was reduced to the lowest. This case-by-case basis has been used by Ravick and also by large sections of the British press to say, what's the big problem? You're given what you're given, something on a case-by-case basis. Sorry, I muddled that up. Unfortunately, the case-by-case basis is separated by the reason for my visit. So yeah, just to give you more context, says Harry, on that it's not really a case-by-case basis. It's an either or. If you're invited to the UK by your family, then we will give you security. If you count on them for any other reason, then you will get a very low amount of security. I'm not going to confirm what that is, but it is completely insufficient. And somewhere along the line, people have talked about the fact that it really, all it is, someone at the end of the phone. So, no matter how much private security I have around me, there's only so much that I can do and operate and function within the UK when it comes to supporting my charities, plural. No, it's my charity with a Y. And visiting my friends. What friends? What friends has he got? He hasn't got no friends. When was the last time you saw Harry in the UK out with friends? And all those things. So I have been treated very, very differently to everybody else. Oh my God, let me just blow my nose again. You know the message I'm getting here. I'm getting that he doesn't like the fact that it's his father who makes royal decisions. He hates the fact that his brother has any input at all into the making of those royal decisions. He believes that with Meghan by his side, not only is he more than capable of making all his own royal decisions regarding security, money, etc., but it would improve. They would modernise the monarchy. Can you imagine how dangerous it would be if Meghan had not been sussed out? Oh, can you imagine if she'd fooled us? Well, she wouldn't, would she? Anyway, the interviewer then goes on to say, he's been treated very, very differently to everybody else that exists, or examples that exist, past and present. I've been singled out. Interviewer says, you've spoken very openly about the fact that you think you've been punished for leaving the monarchy. Who specifically do you think is trying to punish you? Reply, I don't think that anymore. Now I know that it was, security that was used as leverage. And I think what really worries me more than anything else about today's decision, depending on what happens next, is that it set a new precedent and that security can be used to control members. My God, he thinks he's MK Ultra, doesn't he? So in other words, well, yes, that's what's happening. Of course, Harry, you went off like a wild one. You've done some terrible things. You've wrote some horrid words in public, forevermore memorialised. You've spoke to Oprah. You've called the family a racist. And Charles wants to keep a lid on you. That's basically what it is. Charles wants to pipe down. Just go away and be quiet for a couple of decades. That's what he wants. And Harry doesn't like the fact that there's a new president set to control him. To control members of the family. And effectively, says Harry, what it does is imprison the other members of the family from being able to, choose a different life. If for me security is conditional and having an official role that both myself and my wife wish to carry on, but then was rejected, not by Rabec, it was rejected by the royal household. And the result to that is you lose your security and basically says that you cannot live outside of their control if you want to be safe. And there's a pretty hard decision there. And I think if you strip away all the noise and everything that's been said by other people and all the noise that's been created around this, if you strip all that away, I think what people will hear is that the only thing that I've been asking for throughout this whole process is safety. Both when I was part of the institution, that's another word that I've only ever heard since Meghan married Harry, and when we left. And the important piece here is, for me and my wife, well, I mean this again, I'm not sure how much I can say about that. Well, I can never leave the royal family, yeah. Is that my family, that is my larger family. I left the institution because institution is not a word. It was never used. Anyway, I left it because at the end of the day, I had to. I didn't leave it in 2020. I left it in 2021. But security was moved in 2020. And that's it. That's what he said. So he had to leave. And all he ever wanted was security. I think that the royal family have played this. It's been a case of bit by bit. They can't put any hard and fast rules down because everything was being created. But as a British royalist, I was thinking, oh my God, Charles. There's so, I thought Meghan and Harry were winning, and then all of a sudden, this happens today, and that's why I can't be any happier, because it's hit him right where it hurts, and Meghan, because at the end of the day, all they ever wanted from the royal family was IPP status. They wanted that status. And then she could sneakily use her HRH, call me princess, shh. And then they were away around the world. Colombia, Nigeria, Nicaragua, Brazil, anywhere. They go anywhere. IPP status, bring out the big guns, all the security, waving with her new frocks on. And then, of course, she would have got the attention of people in America that some people just don't understand the hierarchy of the royal family or the HRH. They just see it and think, oh, that looks nice. That it matters a lot, doesn't it? Even down to what type of crown is on top of her little name, M. Anyway, the interviewer then says, speaking of your family, your father is ill with cancer. Will you continue to visit him alone without the family? And where does this leave things moving forward, the ability of your children to see their grandfather? Harry replies, life is a precious thing, and I'm acutely aware of the fragility of that. The control and ability is in my father's hands ultimately, and this whole thing, good God, could be resolved through him. Not necessarily by intervening, but by stepping aside. Now, Harry said that. It's in my father's hands. I don't want my father to intervene. I just want him to back off and allow the experts to do what is necessary and to carry out that RMB test that said, and then, of course, the RMB test, which is carried out by Ravic, it's that medical to say how much security you need. then that's when Meghan would come in with her, and look, we needed 6 cars in New York and 4 motorcycles, and we nearly got killed in a car chase, and we had to have this security, and then we had a burglar, and she will lay it on so thick. I remember once, just before they got married, when white powder was delivered to Kensington Palace. I've forgotten a lot of the details, and nothing came of it. I don't, but I wondered 2 things. First, I wondered, was Meghan ordering in her own drugs, or was somebody setting Meghan up for a victimhood? I don't know. But that, it did happen, but it was played right down. Not much of it was reported. But he's saying now, Charles, back off. Let me talk to Ravik. Let me tell Ravik what level of security I need. That's what he's saying. It was initiated under a previous government, Ravik, and there is now a new government. So it's an old-fashioned and a good old-fashioned establishment stitch-up, and that's what it feels like. I think you know that based on the judgment that the court has put out today, it clearly states that Ravik aren't constrained by law. Well, why should they be? There's nothing that can be done that's illegal or legal. It's an office that deals with ad hoc security for visiting people. That's it. Unless, of course, they've got IPP status, in which case they've got it permanently, not only in UK, but all over the world. He wants to be in control of the medical that says how much security he needs. And the company that decides how much security he needs, back off, Charles, I'll take care of this. Oh, and let Meghan come in and she can organise it. She's good like that. Can you imagine? Do you think that Charles and William didn't realise this? And he's actually got the gall to say this on public television. And it was something to do with, as I've said from the beginning, if they're not constrained by law, then this decision was made by the royal prerogative, which means that on national security matters, my case, which the other side have used national security exclusions and excuses to withhold certain information for me, restrict me from being able to speak about certain things to the public, that this national security matter is not bound by any law, and that Ravik can abandon the processes, is the very expert processes that exist to protect individuals and the people around them, as well as the decision makers themselves from liability if anything should happen. So, I would ask the Prime Minister to step in, and I would ask Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, to look at this very, very carefully, and I would ask her to back Ravik and its members, because if it is an expert body, then what is the royal household's role if it isn't to influence and decide what they want for members of their household? Do you want the court battle to continue? Do you want to try and see this get to the Supreme Court? I don't want any battles to continue. There's way too much suffering and way too much conflict in the world. This, at the heart of it, is a family dispute, and it makes me really, really sad that we're sitting here today, 5 years later, with a decision that was made most likely, in fact, to keep us under the royal family roof. But then once we realised that wasn't going to work, once they realised, myself, my wife and our kids are happier outside of the institution, then please just look at the facts and look at the risks. Look at the threat. Look at the impact that if anything was to happen to me, my wife, or my father's grandchildren, if anything was to happen to them, look where the responsibility lies, So there's a duty of care that has completely been thrown out of the window, and that doesn't feel great. Whether we agree or disagree, and there's a lot that we agree on, but there's a lot that we disagree on. But that aside, we're where is the duty of care? Because as I said, life is precious, and it is very clear that from 2020, because I was no longer allowed an official role, and because I decided to remove myself from the institution, that my life got devalued from the highest score to the lowest score overnight. And then the interviewer asks him, and how does that make you feel, given you have expressed numerous times that you do not wish history to repeat itself? Harry says, I don't want history to repeat itself. I think there's a lot of people out there, the majority, that don't want history to repeat itself. Though, through the disclosure process, I've discovered that some people want history to repeat itself, which is pretty dark. And the interviewer says, oh, that's quite a statement. Who do you think that is? And he says, I'm not going to share at this point, you know. I know all the names of the people that are involved in this process, and again, you know, you have to question, why wasn't I put through the same risk management board that everyone else was put through, including members of my family? Interviewer says, and you reject that because you're no longer a working royal. Whether I have an official role or not, says Harry, is irrelevant to the security and the security needs that I would need. Let me rephrase that. Whether I have an official role or not is irrelevant to the threats, risks and impact on the reputation of the UK if something was to happen. And again, that is proven by all of the examples that exist out there. So for me, having an official role was conditional on keeping security, but for everybody else who have chosen this life to enter into public office, then leave, they get security for life, regardless of whether they have a risk or threat to their name. And by the way, I agree with that. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do if you come in and you serve your country. Even if it is for the minimum of 4 years, that you get the protection that you require because of your public service. I was born into this position. It wasn't a choice. I've served my country for 35 years. I believe that I am still continuing to serve my country. Public service is my life. That is the dedication that will never change. And then all the other bits and pieces that are added to that, you know, that are very, very real threats that exist out there. Some that are known about, some that have been withheld, and for people in power and responsibilities of decisions to know that those threats and risks exist. But to turn around and say, well, because you don't have an official role in your life doesn't actually matter anymore. Well, you can imagine how I feel about that. But you can also imagine, not even imagine, that is the most illogical argument in the history of arguments. That's Harry's words. And then the interviewer says, and finally, just because you mentioned it, you know, your connection to your country, your public service after this years-long battle, do you think your relationship has changed with the UK? Do you feel let down by your country? Harry says, that's a big question. At this point, I'm feeling very let down. You know, it's the minority of people, especially those that read the tabloids and the press themselves, that have incited so much hatred towards my wife and even our children. That's hard to forgive. You know, there are decisions that have been made. There are things that have happened since 2016, especially throughout my whole life, but let's just stick since 2016. There are things that have happened that I can now forgive. I have moved past. I can forgive my family's involvement, my father, my brother, and my stepmother. I can forgive. I can forgive the press to a large extent as well for so many things that had happened. What I'm struggling to forgive, and what I probably will always struggle to forgive, is that a decision was made in 2020 that affects my every single day. That is knowingly putting me and my family in harm's way. Everybody knew they were putting it at risk in 2020, and they hoped that me, knowing that risk would force us to come back. But then you realise that that didn't work. Do you not want to keep us safe, whether you're the government, whether you're the royal household, or whether you're my dad, my family, despite all of our differences? Do you not want to keep us safe? Sorry, I'm just getting it all in order because he's getting quite dramatic here. He's asking for the Secretary and the government to do a review of RAVEC, and I'm also asking for an RNB assessment that I haven't received since 2019. That's basically a repeat of what he said all through. The interviewer says, just because you spoke there about forgiving us, it sounds like the last step to repairing relations with your family. It's a security issue by what you've said there. Harry says, 100%. Whatever noise has been created, whatever stories have been written, this has always been the sticking point. And put yourself in my shoes. If you step back to create, I don't know what's happened there, 2719. The decision happened 2020 when the decision happened, and I couldn't believe it. I actually couldn't believe it. I thought with all the disagreements and all of the chaos that's happening, the one thing I could rely on is my family keeping me safe. And not only did they decide to remove my security in the UK, but they also signalled to every single government around the world not to protect us. Interviewer says, how are you feeling about this decision? Because clearly you have 2 children, Archie and Lilibet. They are not able to see their grandparents anymore. What do you mean anymore? Don't think they've ever seen them. I'm not so much devastated as with the loss that I am about the people behind the decision. Feeling as though this is okay, I don't. It is a win for them. It is a win that I don't get the protection that the threats and risks and impact facts say that I should. I would hope they would consider it a win. I'm sure there's people out there, probably, most likely, the people that wish me harm, and they'd considered this a huge win. There have been so many disagreements between me and my own family that this current situation has been ongoing. I think that's it. Ongoing. Some of them, here we go. Some members of my family will never forgive me for writing a book. And of course they will never forgive me. Lots of things. But there is, I would love reconciliation with my family, always. There's no point in continuing to fight. As I said, life is precious. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. But it would be nice, yes, it would be nice to reconcile, as I've learned through the First Nations throughout Canada, because of the Invictus Games. Their goal in life was always truth and reconciliation. And I turned around to them in many conversations. I said, right, but reconciliation cannot come without truth. Well, now I found the truth. I've shared some of it with you today. A lot of it exists out there, whether people choose to ignore it or not, so it would be nice to have the reconciliation part now. If they don't want that, that's entirely up to them. And then the interviewer says, and now that this court battle is over, do you feel you will be able to approach your father and speak about some of these issues? I mean, if Harry butts in, no. I don't think you would ever want to talk about it. I think he would just push it aside, and the argument will continue to be, this is a government decision. Well, maybe a government decision, but how did they reach that decision? When the RAVEC chairman in the first place they went was to the palace to understand what it was that the royal household or the royal family want for me. I have never been allowed or offered to make my own representation, not in 2020 and not. So, again, he's 3112, 3107. The government. So, yeah, 3107. How did they reach that decision? When the Ravik chair, the first place that they went was to the palace to understand what it was that the royal household or what the royal family want for me. I have never, ever been allowed or offered to make my own representations, not in 2020 and not for the last 5 years. And the new Ravik chair continues to avoid answering some very specific questions that I have. And one of your previous questions that I think is really important is this case by case. I lost it there, that's it. And anyway, basically he wants his father to give up his seat on the chair on the board of Ravik, even though Ravik purely exists for the royal family and for other visiting royal families and dignitaries and probably just royals from throughout the world. And he wants his father to give Harry complete carte blanche, complete permission to control Ravik, get his own assessment, which of course Meghan will have to be assessed too, put them back on the highest, dangerous level where they're in so much peril that they have to have, it'll be like King John coming with the bodyguards have to run along the car as the car's driving. Really, can you imagine if Meghan was allowed to pick her own security? It's not for security that she would want it. It's for status. And that's it, folks. I've been going on a bit, I know, but that's it. It's unbelievable, isn't it? I've read it like he said it, which is basically, and I'm still watching that trial. Yep, I'm still watching it, and it's gripping, but it's taken up a lot of time, but I still think it's worth. I better buzz off now because I'm 91 minutes. Good God. Anyway, I hope you got it. If you haven't, you can read it because I've done the transcript there. And I hope you enjoy it. What's that there? Oh, that's Meghan. Oof. Anyway, thank you for listening. Oh, I wanted to say this. A lovely commenter recommended this Wonder Dust. And I looked on eBay and it wasn't there. They had one supplier in UK and they only had 4 left in stock. And I've done it. It's coming tomorrow. Wonder Dust wound powder for horses and show stock. But I don't mind that because this person, I don't know his name, he's only got initials, but this person has told me to put it on my palms and my hands, rub my hands together, and then rub it on the cat. It's okay. Well, normally I would be wary of a horse, obviously, but this person has got a cat and has used it on his cat, and his cat is better. And he had the same thing. So I'm willing to give it a go because I do trust people. And he said he would be honoured to send me some of it. And I obviously, I just don't like taking things off people. But I managed to find it myself. But it was rather expensive. I think it's an American thing. And American stuff is always expensive over here. But it would be better if I joined Amazon Prime and paid that $7.99 a month. I could get free deliveries, but it would only encourage me. It would encourage me to spend money, and I don't like spending money. I don't. If I can make do and mend, I'll make do and mend. But I have got my bottle of. I got that cracking though. That bottle of rum that I had for Christmas, I actually was saving Tesco's rewards all year. It was all year, and I saved. I think it was about 50 quid, a pound either way. I managed to get half a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of Kraken, and a bottle of Captain Morgan spiced rum. So I did okay. I've still got it all here. I used to be a drinker, but not so much these days. But I'm going to have that Kraken in my coffee. Oh, it's been a wonderful day today. Just thinking of Meghan Markle's misery is enough to send me, really. I mean, she said, didn't she say the other day she's the happiest she's ever been? Oh, Megan, you know, I'm the happiest that anyone's ever been. You have made me so happy today. Anyway, I'll see you as soon as I can. Thanks for listening. Cheerio!